Now, so in this section, we're going to spend maybe 20 or 30 minutes just getting over all the revision that we done in the first half. I have created a practice test here that I use for my everyday students. And what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to download the resource files from the location. And you'll have 3 spreadsheets, and you'll also have a PDF. Now the PDF is the actual questions. It may be worthwhile printing them out, and you'll be able to do it. Or you might have an iPad you can put them on, but ideally you don't want to be swapping across screens. So if you have them printed out, it's a good idea. And you want to make a folder. So anywhere on your desktop, you want a 2-finger click or secondary click or right click and go to new folder. We're going to call it practice 1. And we're going to put these files into it. So these 3 files: scoreboard, new members, and golf budget. We may not use them all now in this practice, but I want you to have them in case I ever change it. So practice 1 here that we have .pdf, that's the actual questions. Okay, now we may need to split this video into 2 sections because we're limited to the amount of time we can have a video up for, but I'll put one video after the other so you can see it. So the first thing we want to do is I'm going to open up the questions. We have them here. It says open the spreadsheet application, so we and open the golf budget.xls. So we have one here. It's called golf budget. Okay, so with golf budget open, I'm going to maximize it out full screen, so we have it here, and you can see here. So at the minute we're on the bank loan worksheet. Have a quick look at the bottom of the tabs just to make sure you know where you are. It wants to save it from golf budget. It wants to save it as extension budget, so we go to file and save as. Once we go to save as, instead of golf budget, we're going to put extension budget on it. So we click in. I'm going to put extension budget. Doesn't matter if it's big or small. In this case it has small on the exam, so we'll put it in here. It's saving a 2 practice test, 1 as an Excel workbook, so we'll just click on save. So you can see it has the name up at the top now, extension workbook. Number 2 wants to zoom the costings worksheet to 100%. So we're on bank loan at the minute, so we want to go to costings. It's at 75 at the minute. If you want, you can just keep clicking the plus to get to 100. If it was something like 94 or 93 or 2, you could click on the actual number that you have here and it will let you do it there. Okay. Number 3, on the costings worksheet, widen column A as appropriate. So you can see column A here runs down and it doesn't actually take in all the stuff. So heating and something, architect's fees, and it's just cutting off bits and pieces. Expected rev, and it doesn't tell you what it is. So we have A and B here. If we hover between A and B, you can see we get a double-headed arrow. Once you have the double-headed arrow, if we double tip on it, it's going to allow us to automatically fit it. You could click and drag out and that's perfectly fine. Number 4, which one of the 2 cells, E7 or E8, displays good practice in totaling a cell range? Enter your answer in B22. So you can see we have 2 cells here, E7 and E8. And I'm going to zoom in a wee bit just so you can see both of them. Okay, so we've E7 here and we've E8. In an exam situation or that I would do with my students, I would get them to write the answer out here. You don't need to do that, but we'll talk about why one of them's good practice and the other one's not. So you can see the formula comes up in the formula bar here at the top. So E7 is equals B7 plus C7 plus D7, whereas E8 is equal to sum B8 to D8. So this one is adding the blue, the red and the purple, whereas this one is adding these 3 cells here. Both of them are doing the same thing, so both are adding the 3 cells to the left hand side of them, but they're doing them in different ways. One's adding cell 1, cell 2 and cell 3, whereas the other one is adding from cell 1 to cell 3. So which one of them is better practice? The second one is better practice, and I'm going to tell you exactly why. So this one is better practice. If I was, for example, to put in another cell here or another column here, so I put in another column here, and if I entered figures into it, just say 766, and I'm going to put it in here as well, 766. Now, you'll see this cell, so it was E7, it's now changed to F7 because we've put one in before, but we'll take that out in a second. It's still adding up the 3 cells, the blue, the red, and the purple. It's excluding this one here, so it's not taking that into account, whereas this other one has included that new cell in. So it's seen as better practice to use a range instead of adding particular cells, because you can then go back and do it. So that's why it's better practice. If you want to put that into a sentence, you could just say that it's seen as good practice to use a cell range, and you could say because it will take in future columns whenever you need to. Okay, and you could, if you want, you can type it in there, but I'm not going to ask you to do that. This is just a practice thing. It says number 5, enter 1600 in cell C11. So we're going to put 1600 into cell C11, and it wants to change the number in D8 from 400 to 600. So it's 400 at the minute, and we put it to 600. Okay, now something to remember about this practice exam that we're doing now. Each of the sections that are in this practice exam, these are just a practice exercise to get you practicing so you can actually put your skills to the test. Each of the sections in this is detailed in the other lectures. So you'll be able to go back and have a look and see. So you're after doing all these lectures, you can quickly go back and have a look and see, do I know how to do this? Am I able to do it? Or if you have any problems with the sample test, this is going to highlight it for you and you'll be able to go back and do it. Okay, so that's number 5 done. Number 6, enter a formula in B12 to calculate the sum of the cell range B7 to B11. So we want to put in a formula into B12. We want to click into B12, and what it wants us to do is it wants us to enter a formula to add the sum of the cells. So we go up to the autosum button, which is up the very top right hand corner, and we click on the sum. It's adding up B7 to B11, which is exactly what it asked us for, and we click on enter. The next question wants us, number 7, copy the formula in B12. So I'm clicking on B12. It wants to copy the formula, so it's the autofill button, and to the cell range C12 to E12. So it's right across there. So we're just clicking and dragging it across. So again, it's in one of the earlier lectures. Number 8, enter a formula in cell F7. So F7 is here, with an absolute cell reference, so absolute's in one of the earlier lectures, for one cell only that divides E7 by E12, and then copy the formula down. So it wants us to divide E7 by E12, so I'm going to do equals E7 divided by E12, and it wants one of these cells to be absolute. Now absolute means that when we go to autofill later on, that it's not going to move down the cells. And again, in the earlier lectures we go through absolute in more detail. So the total here is the one. So what they're going to want to do is they're going to want to divide the heating cost by the total, the architect fees by the total, the electrical fees by the total, the building costs by the total, and the glazing by the total. So everything's going to be going by the total. So it makes sense that the total would need to be absolute. So we're going to press Fn and F4, or Fn and the F4 key, depending on what keyboard that you're using. But the ultimate goal we want, I'm going to zoom in just to show you, is it wants to be $E, $12, and that's your absolute formula. That's what makes a cell absolute. We click on enter, and it gives us 0.5992, and if I drag it down, you can see that it does all the things for me. Now what I'm going to do is I don't like doing something like that and not actually telling the students what would happen if we didn't do it. I'm going to select these cells like that, I'm going to copy them, and I'm going to paste them just over here at the right hand side, just so we can see them. So these are the same cells that we have a percentage sign there, and what we're going to do is I'm going to do it without making one of the cells absolute to show you why we would make it absolute. So at the minute, if I click here, you can see that it's dividing the blue by the red. The next one is dividing the blue by, again, the red, because remember the red is absolute, so it always remains in the same place. This one is absolute, it remains in the same place, and so on. You can see there the way it's going. Now, if I was to divide it over here, so if I was to say equals that one divided by that one, which is the same formula as we did earlier on, it's just in a different location. I'm not going to do the absolute, I'm just going to say enter. It gives us roughly the same answer, so it's 0.1, it's more decimal places there. If I was to put this formula down, I'm just going to put it down to 2 decimal places, just so we can see it. So you can see now it's the 0.992. Now if I was to drag it down, in the same way, you can see it's giving me a divx error or div0 error. Okay, the reason it's doing this, we know that when we have one cell here, when we're using the autofill button, if we move down one, it moves one with it, and that's the way it goes, and that's the way it's supposed to work. But when we make one cell absolute, we tell it stay where you are, and the other one moves and it stays. We haven't made anything absolute in this case, so you can see the first one is dividing that one by that one, which is correct. The next one, if we click into it, is dividing this one by this one. You can see both cells have moved down one. The next one is dividing this one by this one. The next one is dividing this one by this one, and so on. So you can see what it's doing is it's dividing it by an empty cell. So that's why you would make it absolute in that case. Again, if you don't just understand that fully, just make sure you go back and have a look at the absolute section. Absolute does come in very easy at times. Okay, number 11. Enter a form, no, number 9. Format the cell range F7 to F11 as a percentage with 2 decimal places. So it's F7 to F11. It wants it formatted as percentage, which is here, format as percentage. And it wants 2 decimal places. So this will increase the decimal place. So we click on 1, 2. So it's 59.92%. Number 10. Enter a formula in cell B14 that subtracts B12 from B3. Copy the formula in cell B14 across. So what it wants us to do is it wants us to subtract B12 from B3. Think of this, if it's 6 minus 10, or if it's 6 from 10, it's going to be 10 minus 6. So it's going to be B3 minus B12. It might take a wee while to get your head around that, but you're subtracting B12 from B3. So it's B3 minus B12. So it's equals B3 minus B12. And we hit on enter. It gives us a negative figure. That's okay. Companies can make negative figures. And then we want to copy it across. And that gives us our answer then. Okay. Enter a formula in B14 that subtracts, that's it on number 10. Number 11, enter a formula in B15 to calculate the maximum of the cell range. So we want to calculate the maximum. So maximum, minimum and average are going to be all the same procedure, but you just need to make sure that when you do the maximum, you're doing it of the right cells. It will automatically try to do the easiest cell for it. So you'll see now when I go to do it. So you're clicking in where you want your answer to go, and I'm going to maximum. So I'm clicking on the autosum button and I'm going to max. You can see automatically it straight away goes to the easiest cell for it. We want B7 to B11, so just make sure you double check to make sure it's doing the right ones, and we say enter and we drag it across like that. The next one then is the minimum cost, so we want to go on ahead now. I'm going to go to minimum and I'm going to make sure again it's doing the right cells. We hit enter. I'm going to drag it across. And the last one is the average. So I'm going to click on, I'm going to go to average, and I'm going to scroll down, hit enter, and I'm going to drag that one across then. So that's them all dragged across there. Now, we're after doing it down as far as question 13. So we're going on to question 14. So minimum, maximum, minimum, and average are all the same. Enter a formula in cell J9. I'm going to click into J9. And it wants to add using the plus operator. So it's the plus sign. So it's going to be equals something plus something. That adds B7 and B9. So it's going to be equals B7 plus B9. And we press enter on the keyboard and it gives us our answer there. Number 15. Enter a formula in cell B20 that displays the text yes if the number in cell E14 is less than 0 and otherwise displays no. So this is the if statement. I'm going to click here and I'm going to just put in a shape. I'm going to put in a text box for us just so we can actually write it out. So when we're doing an if statement, again, if you're not 100% sure about the if statement, look back and see exactly what it is. But we have 3 things. We have the test. On the next line, we have the value if it's true. And on the next line, we have the value if false. I always like students to write it down like that. And it just gives you that sense of that there needs to be three things. So looking at the question then, I'm just going to put my questions here so I can see them. Enter the formula in cell B20 that displays the text yes if the number in cell C14 is less than 0. Well, that's our test. Test is C14 less than 0. Okay, the less than sign always points to the left, that small arrow. Think of L for left and less. The value of true, so if that is true, so read it again. Enter a formula in cell B20 that displays yes if the number in cell. So if it is less, it wants it to say yes. And then otherwise, so if it's not yes, it's going to be no. So that's the way you should be writing them down. And then after that, you can take the test out, you can take the value of true out, and you can take the value of false out. And that's leaving you with your three things. So I'm going to leave this here just so we can see it later on. So I'm going to go and put the formula in. So it wants us in B20. So I'm clicking into B20. I'm going to click on my formula button, or we could go to insert formula, or we could go to formulas. But I'm going to click on the FX button just for a change. I'm going to search for if. It is there. You can see it there, but I'm just going to search for if. So I click on if and I go to insert function. You can see now 1, 2, 3. We have 3 sections. Test, value of true, value of false. So what's the test? Is C14 less than 0. The value of true is going to be yes, and the value of false is going to be no. So can you see how by doing it out like that in a straightforward manner, it leaves it that it's easier for you whenever you go to do the test. When you get a couple of them done, so when you get 10, 15, 20, 30, 35, 40, whatever it is, if statements done and you become familiar with them. It might take some people more than others, but once you become familiar with them, you won't have to write them out early. Then it'll come into your head and you'll be able to do them. So I'm just going to say done. It's saying that the answer is yes, and we're okay. So we're happy enough with that. So C14 must be less than 0. So that's why I said it's okay to make a loss, because it's asking us, do we need to borrow money? So the company needs to borrow money. Number 16. Format the cell B3 to E17 to a currency with no decimal places. So we have B3 to E17. So there we have them, and we want to format it as currency. So I'm going to click down here. So you can see in the formatting section at the top in the middle, I'm clicking it, I'm going to currency. There, it's formatted as currency, but at the minute it's 2 decimal places. So I want to decrease the decimal. So you can see there's decreased decimal 1, 2, and that does it for us. Okay, I'm going to turn over the page here, and we have them. Number 18 wants us to insert a right-aligned field in the footer of the costings worksheet that shows the worksheet name. So we're in the costings worksheet here, and we want to go into the header and footer. So the quickest way to do it is insert, and we'll say header and footer. And it'll open up both header and footer for us here. Here's the header, and we want to go down to the very bottom of it, and here's the footer. So we've 3 sections: left, center, right. I'm going to click into the right, and it wants us to put the worksheet name. So on the header and footer tab, you can see we've different options here. So we could put in page numbers, dates, times, file path, file name. Here's the sheet name or the worksheet name. And when I click it, it's going to say and tab. Okay, so you can see it says and tab, and what that means is it just puts in whatever name is on that particular tab. So it doesn't show you a name straight away in case you change this later on, but it has and tab there. So that's it. That's the header and footer. To close out of the header and footer, you can just click back into your worksheet. Now, a lot of people get confused by this. When you open up the header and footer, it puts you into print view layout. So it shows you pages that it's going to print out. At the bottom here, you can see you have a different view here. You can go back to normal, and it'll put you back into normal view. So some people panic once they see them lines in it, but it's only Excel splits it up and shows you what the actual page would look like when printed out. Number 19, on the donations worksheet, you want to be able to sort the cell range A2 to A135 by the last name only in ascending order. What changes are required for the cell range A2 to B135 to allow you to do this? Enter your answer. So I'm going to go in now to the donations worksheet. Now, this isn't actually something that we done earlier on in the course, but it's okay. I have it in here for students, and I think it'll be beneficial to you, so I left it in. So you can see here we have a column. We have first and second name. Now if I wanted to sort these people, I can only sort them by first name because I can't sort them by second name because their first and second name are joined up. That's why I always say it's good practice. First name, last name. You don't want to put people's in as name. So what we want to do is we want to split this up. So instead of having first and last name, I want to split it up into first and last. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the names first of all. Now I'm selecting right down there. Notice I'm not selecting that top one, the first name actual header. I'm just selecting from A2 down to A135, I think it is, or there or thereabouts. I'm not selecting column A. I'm just selecting the actual contents of it. And what we want to do is we want to split these up. Now in between every first and second name there's a common thing. And the common thing is a space. So that's what we're going to use to tell Excel, listen, anywhere there's a space, split it. So you need to make sure, you can see this is an Irish name, O'Toole is here. And it has an apostrophe in there. There's no space. So you need to make sure that there's no, if it's a McDonald, there's no space between the MC and the D. So you need to make sure that, because if there was, it would split it up into 3 different columns. So we only want to make sure, or if it's a double barrel name, so if it's McDonald Smith, you want to make sure that between McDonald and Smith, there's maybe a stroke instead of a space, because again, it'll split it up into it. So looking down through it, have I any double barrel names? I don't think I do. No, I don't. So if I go ahead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a double barrel name in there, just so we can see it. I'm going to put my own name in. Okay. And then we select them again. Now, so once we've them selected, I want to go to data. I'm going to go to text to columns, which is in, so it's data and then text to columns. You can see the icon. If you look at it before you click it, it's one column and it's putting it into 2 columns. You can see it there from the icon. And it's a wizard. It's just a straightforward wizard. It does it for you. We want to click on next first of all. It's asking us what do we split them up. So you can see I'm going to click on space. So there's space there. You can scroll down through them just to have a quick look to see is everything working for you. Scroll right down through them. They're all gone out. There's the double barrel name there. You can see we have it, and I'm going to say finish. You can just go straight to finish. It puts them in. There's the double barrel name. If I was to have no stroke in there or a space, it would put it into the next column. So now we can go ahead if you wanted, and you could sort and filter. Now it doesn't ask you in the test to do this, but it's just asked you to do it. So sort A to Z, and you can see it sorts them all then, whereas earlier on you wouldn't have been able to do that. So down at the bottom here in this question, you can see down at the bottom there's an area, and what I would want students to do if they're doing it is actually to tell me why they can't sort it by first and last names, so they could type it in there, but you don't need to do that. Okay, the next question then wants us to, under the nations worksheet, freeze row 1 and save. So I'm under the nations worksheet. I'm going up to the very top. You can see that as I go down here, I can't tell whether it's first or last name. Now I know looking at it, but what we do is we go onto the view tab and go on and we say freeze top row. So we click on freeze top row, and then when we move, you can see the first row stays where it is, and we can always see it. The next one we have is number 21. Under the nations worksheet, apply settings so that the titles on row 1 would automatically print at the top of each page. If I was to print out this, I'm just going to go to the file menu a second, and I'm going to go to print. If I was to go to print, you'll see now straight away that it's printing out the row 1 on page 1. There's 8 pages of text here. You can see 1 of 8. If I click into the next one, you can see it's not printing out now. So it's only printing out the first one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the page layout tab, and I'm going to go to the page setup. Once we go to page setup, we want to make sure we're on the sheet tab, and here we have rows to repeat at top. So it's which rows do we want to repeat at top, and we just click into row 1. It puts $1, $1 in for us, and we say OK. Once we do that, now I'm going to go to file and print just to show you. File and print. And you'll see now there's page 1 and there's page 2, and you can see we have the heading at the top of the page. Okay. The next thing we want to do is on the Number 23. Rename sheet 3 so it meaningfully relates. So sheet 3 is here, so I want us to rename it. Now this is just an exercise we have in to make sure that you know how to rename worksheets. It's sheet 3 at the minute. It wants us to rename so it reflects the content. So we've male and female here. So I'm just going to call it, I'm going to secondary click, so 2-finger click, and I'm going to go to rename, or you can click on it and rename, and we're going to call it gender. And it's just to see, do you know how to rename worksheets. Number 23, rename the bank loan worksheet as funding. So there's bank loan. So we want a secondary click and we want to go to rename, and we're going to put funding in. And we're clicking out of it. And it wants us to save. I'm just going to click on the save icon and that'll save for us. On the funding worksheet, there's a name error. So we're on the funding worksheet at the minute. There's a name error in value in cell B8. Why is this error displayed? Enter your answer in the stated cell. So what I want you to do, it wants you to look at this, see why is that error there, and I want you to explain why it is here. We don't need to type out explain, but I do want to show you why it is. So this name error, now a name error usually means that there's an incorrect spelling or something's called wrong. So just say, for example, we were dealing with a sum function earlier on, SUM. If you typed it in SIM for sim, it would come up with a name error. So we want to look at it here, and up in the formula bar straight away, you can see that it's equal sum. There's a small c there. The c's not supposed to be there. I'm going to just show you what it is. We take the c out of it, and you can see straight away we're after correcting the name error there. So usually with them errors, we've seen earlier on, there's a div 0. The div 0 is when you're dividing by 0. So it'll show you exactly what the error is. We also seen, you may not have noticed it, when I copy and pasted when we were doing the absolute cell reference, we got the hash signs. That was, column was too narrow for the text that was in it. So there's different ones there, different errors. Number 25, on the funding worksheet, create a column chart. Accept the default column chart from the cell range A2 to B6. So it's on the funding worksheet, and it's A2 to B6. So just select the cells that they want you to do, and we want to go to insert. Once we're on insert, we want to go to the charts. So here's a column chart here. So you can hover across it, it'll come up and tell you. Column chart, and it wants to be a column chart, so it's just, we just do the standard default one. It puts it in there. You can see it puts your column straight out there. It has all the things on it. On the funding, number 26, on the funding worksheet, move the column chart to begin near A13. So A13 is here, so I'm going to put it there. It begins near A13 is there. So it's just to see, can you move that chart. Change the color of the chart area to yellow. So here's the chart area. You can see when I hover across the different areas of the chart, this is the plot area, this is the series, okay, this is your vertical axis, this is your horizontal axis, but here is the chart area. So if I click on the chart area, and if I go up to format, once I click on format, you can see I'm going to fill it with the shape fill, and I'm going to put it to yellow. And there it does it for us. That might be hard in your eyes, but I'm going to leave it to yellow. Change the color of the columns in the chart to a color of your choice. So here's the columns in the chart. So if I click on one of them, you can see it selects them all. So they all have the handles around it. Again, format and shape fill. And we're going to put it to a color of our choice. So there's the red on it. Okay, it doesn't really matter what you do. Add your name into the left section of the header. Number 29, add your name into the left section of the header of the funding worksheet. Save and close. So we're going to the left section of the header. So I'm going to go to insert, header and footer. It opens up for us. We can do it that way. Either we can put it into that way, or we can click on the header and footer, and it'll open up that way. So here's the left section of the header. We want to do a custom left section of the header. So here's the header. I'm going to do a custom header. Here's the left section, and we have a name. And it puts it in on OK. And OK, and you can see it. The other way we could have done it was if we had been on a cell. I was selected in cells. We can go the same way as we did earlier on. Insert, header and footer, and it'll open up the header and footer like that for us. Each way we'll do it the same, and you'll see if we go back to the header, we'll have it there. It's on the the worksheet that I was on. So the different worksheet will have it on it for you. Number 30. Add the file, open the file called new members from your practice folder. So we've a file called practice folder. So I'm going to open it here. I'm just going to file and open. I'm going to go to my practice folder. It's on my Mac and it's called new members. I'm going to say open. So there's our new members open. I'll leave it full screen as well for us. Change the top and bottom margins of the worksheet to 2.5. So I'm going to the page layout and here's the margins. I'm going to put a custom margin in. So I'm going to click on custom margins. The top and bottom, I want it to be 2.5. Okay, so I'm going to put in there 2.5 and I'm going to put in there 2.5. I suspect that's centimeters. I'm not going to say it because different people are in different regions. So you just put in 2.5, whether it's centimeters or inches, it doesn't matter. It's only to see, can you do it? Number 31, enter a function to add up the new members' names in the cell B4 to B40. Save and close. So we've members here, as you can see, B4 to B40. I'm going to put that on the normal view just so we don't have to look at them. So there's B4 to B40. And it wants us to put a formula in here to add these up. So there's two functions we can do it. There's a count and a count A. Okay, so it's count and count A. I'm just going to click onto the home tab and I'm going to open up and I'm going to show you count. So there's count and count A. Count, you can see, counts the number of cells that contain numbers, whereas count A counts the number of cells that are not empty. So we don't want to count numbers here, we want to count cells that have content in them. So we're using a count A and we're going to go to insert function. It wants to know what's the value and you just select the cells you want to do. Notice I'm doing it from the bottom up. You don't always have to select from the bottom down. It will put it in B4 to B40. So it's telling you the result is 37 and we're clicking on done. So you can see we used earlier on doing the if statement. It was the same, you know, you open up, you search for your function. All these functions, there's hundreds of them there. So you'll be able to read. You can see here at the bottom, you can read exactly how to do them and what the formula does, and there's help on them formulas. Number 32, open the file called scoreboard from your practice folder. Save the scoreboard as a template format. So we're going to open up the scoreboard, file and open. It's on our Mac and it's the scoreboard one. So we open it. So there's the scoreboard one open. It wants to save it as a template. So we go to file, save as a template. It'll open up here. You can see it's saving as an Excel template, and does it tell us what name to put it in as? It just says leave it as scoreboard and we say save. Now you would save a template if you wanted to use it later on. It will save like that, that when you open it, it has that position, name, today, rounds set up for you. So we just say save and that's it, saved as a template. Okay, so that's the sample test. Now I will have to split them up into two videos. The video's taken more than I expected, so I have to split it up into two videos, but you'll be able to go back and see them and slow them down, and it's a good way to get your practice from all the first basic beginner section up to scratch and get us ready to go on into the advanced section. So I hope to see you back soon. Thanks.